Hey you guys, and welcome to the tutorial for this scarf. I did make it for my kids, however you can customize it to any size, so you can also make it for adults. And as always, I wish you lots of fun crocheting and making this scarf. For the scarf for my daughter, I'm going to use this beautiful yarn from Hobbii. It's called Tweed Delight. And it is the color number 16, and it is recommending a 6mm hook, and it is made out of 85% wool, 10% acrylic, and 5% viscose. And I'm also going to be using a 6mm hook like recommended. And you're also going to need some scissors, a darning needle, a stitch marker, and if you do make specific measurements, you're also going to need a measuring tape. Before we start, I just want to show you the design that I have planned for the scarf, just so you have a little overview of the crochet process. So we are going to start with this part right here without the ribbing first, and then we're going to add the ribbing on one side and then basically go back around, make a little lining on this side, and then make the ribbing on the other side. And then we're going to finish off with making a lining all the way around the scarf. For our foundation chain, we are going to make a chain that is as wide as you want your scarf to be. And for reference, I'm going to use the scarf that I already made for my son. So I'm going to make my chain as wide as this scarf is. And when I made this scarf, for reference, I used a scarf that I already had for my daughter. So you can either use a scarf that you already have for reference, or you can just make a chain as wide as you want to. We're going to start off with a slip knot, and for a slip knot you're going to put your yarn over your index and middle finger, and then just hold it in place with your thumb. Then you're going to wrap it around once and create an X. And you just make sure you hold this X, and then you can take your fingers out of this loop and then place your yarn behind that loop like this. And then you're going to go into this strand with your hook, and then all you have to do is just pull this tight. And now you created your slip knot. And for chaining, you're gonna yarn over and pull this yarn through the loop on your hook. And now you created your first chain. And you're gonna chain again and again, as many times as you need until you reach your desired width of your scarf. And once you have the desired width of your scarf, that's when I'm gonna meet you back. Okay, so I have here my chain, and in total I have 16 chains. And I also just want to let you know that we're going to add a lining, as you can see, on the outside of the scarf. So it's going to get a little bit wider than your original chain, just so you have that in mind. And yeah, so I have 16 chains here, and my chain is about 11 centimeters long. Once you have your chain, you are gonna add one more chain. So you're gonna yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. And this is gonna be our turning chain. And now for our first row, we are gonna make half double crochets into each back loop. So you're gonna grab your chain and turn it around so you can see the back loops of the chains right here. And we are going to skip the first back loop. Like I said, the first chain is our turning chain. And we are going to work a half double crochet into the second back loop. So for a half double crochet, you're going to yarn over. And you're going to go into the second back loop. You're going to yarn over, pull up a loop. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And this is your first half double crochet. And we are also going to add a half double crochet into each of the back loops. So for the next one, yarn over, go into the next back loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And again, yarn over, go into the next back loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And continue down this pattern of half double crochets into each back loop all the way down your chain. And once you're at the end of your chain, that's when I'm gonna meet you back. I am here at the end of my row and I have 1 more half double crochet to make. So I'm gonna yarn over and go into the last back loop right here. Pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And now we made our last half double crochet. And now you're gonna have the same amount of stitches that you had in the beginning with your foundation chain. So I had 16 chains and I added 1 as a turning chain, and now I have again 16 chains. Just for you to know how many chains you should have consistently for your whole scarf, so that you know how many stitches you have in each row. And now for your next row, you're gonna chain 1 and turn your work. And now you're gonna place 1 half double crochet into each stitch of the row. So you're gonna yarn over, you're gonna skip this chain 1 that you just did, because this is again our turning chain, and you're gonna go into this first stitch right here. So you're gonna go into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And you're gonna keep placing your half double crochets all the way down, and once you're at the end of the row, I'm gonna meet you back. So I'm here at the end of my row and I have 1 more half double crochet to make in the last stitch. And in this row, after the first row, it can be a little bit hard to see what the last stitch is. So you're gonna see this last half double crochet right here, and you're just gonna follow this up and then turn it around, and you see this is the last stitch. Another way to know what your last stitch is that you started off with a certain amount of chains as your foundation chain, and then you added 1 as a turning chain. And the first number of chains that you did, so for me it was 16, this is how many stitches you should have in each row. So you can just count your stitches, and if you have 1 more missing, then you know, okay, this is gonna be your last stitch right here. So you're gonna yarn over and go into the last stitch, and you're gonna place your last half double crochet. And for the next row, you're gonna chain 1 and turn your work. And from now on, it is the same pattern for each row. You are gonna start by chaining 1 and turning your work, and then place a half double crochet into each of the stitches until you make it back to the end of the row. And then again, chain 1, turn your work, and so on and so forth. And you're gonna do this until you reach your desired length of the scarf, or better yet, the desired length without the ribbing, because as I said earlier when I showed you the design, we are gonna add a ribbed part to both ends of our scarf. So I'm gonna meet you back once you have your desired length for this half double crochet scarf panel. I am here at my last row and I have 1 more half double crochet to make. So I'm gonna place my last half double crochet. And I now have my desired length of the scarf. I mean, obviously it can't all fit on the video, but I am gonna provide you with some measurements. Okay, so I have 110 rows in total, and the length of my scarf is 107 centimeters. And now it's time for us to add our ribbed part. You can decide how long you want your ribbed part to be. And to start off, you're gonna chain any amount of chains to reach the desired length of your ribbed part. So just go ahead and chain. And And once you got your desired length for your ribbed part, that's when I'm gonna meet you back. I have here my chain for the ribbed part, and in total I have 20 chains, and it is about 12 centimeters long. And once you have your chain, you're gonna turn your work. And now you are gonna chain one more. This is gonna count as your turning chain. And now we're gonna place single crochets all the way down in each chain. We are gonna skip our first chain because this is our turning chain, and we are gonna go into our second chain. You're gonna pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops on your hook. This is your first single crochet, and you're gonna go into the second chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. You're gonna go into the next chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. And you're gonna repeat this process with each chain. And once you made all of your single crochets, that's when I'm gonna meet you back. Okay, so I am here at my last chain, and I'm gonna place my last single crochet. And now it's time to connect this part to our panel right here. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna slip stitch into this very first stitch. So you're gonna go in here, pull up a loop, and pull this loop right through the loop on your hook. And now we're gonna make a second slip stitch into the second stitch. So go into your next stitch, pull up a loop, and pull this loop right through the loop on your hook. And now you are gonna turn your work. And now we are gonna work single crochets back up until the top, but only into the back loop of the stitches. And you're gonna skip the first two slip stitches that you did. So this was the second one that you did, and this was the first one that you did. And you're gonna skip these two and go into the third stitch. And this is basically our first stitch of this ribbed part, as you can see. And you're gonna go into the back loop only. So go into the back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. Then go into the next back loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. Go into the next back loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. And you're gonna keep repeating this process of single crochets into the back loop only until you reach the top of your ribbed part. And now I'm back at the top. I have one more stitch to make, and again, because of this turning chain here, it can be a little bit confusing sometimes to see what your last stitch is. But you can see that these are all of your single crochets, and this is your last one, and you just follow it up and turn it up a little bit, and then you can see this is your last stitch that you have to work into. So go into the back loop of your last stitch and place your single crochet. And once you have placed all your single crochets and you're back at the top, then chain one and turn your work. And now you are going to do the same thing. You are going to place single crochets into the back loop only into each stitch. So skip the turning chain, go into your first stitch and into the back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. And do that for each of the stitches until you come back to the bottom of your ribbed part. Okay, so I have here 2 more stitches to make. I just wanted to show you what it looks like. So you can see the stitches, these V's right here. And as you can see, I have 2 more of these V's, so that's my last 2 stitches. And I am going to place the last 2 single crochets. And now it's time to reconnect our ribbed part again to this scarf panel. So we are going to slip stitch into this stitch right here. So go into this stitch, pull up a loop, and pull it right through the loop on your hook. And we are also going to slip stitch again into the next stitch. So now we're going to turn our work. And now, again, you are going to skip your 2 slip stitches and you're going to go into this first stitch of your panel. So basically what looks like your 3rd stitch from right here. So skip your 2 slip stitches and go into this stitch right here. You can also, if it helps you, mark that last stitch when you come back. So when you come from the top to the bottom, you can mark the last stitch that you did before you made your slip stitches, and then when you made your slip stitches and turn your work, you know that this is the stitch that you have to work your first single crochet into. If it helps you, you can do that, but you already know to skip your first 2 slip stitches and then go into the back loop of this first stitch of your ribbed part, pull up a loop, yarn over, and make your single crochet. And now you just keep placing your single crochets all the way up and always into the back loop only. This is what makes this ribbed effect. And once you're back at the top, that's when I'm gonna meet you back. Okay, I am back at the top and I'm placing my last single crochet into the back loop only. And now again, always at the top, you are gonna chain 1 and turn your work. And now you repeat those 2 rows that I showed you. You're just gonna work all the way down and back up until you have all of these stitches filled up and your ribbed part complete. And once you did that, that's when I'm gonna meet you back. And just to remind you, always skip this first turning chain and then place your single crochets into the back loop only. So start with this first stitch and then make your way all the way down. Okay, so I have here my finished ribbed part, and also you should end up on the top of your scarf, end of this ribbed part, since we did an even number of rows down here at this half double crochet panel. And also just for you to know and make sure that these rows here should always be the number of rows that you had in the beginning. So when you had 20 chains like I did, then you should always have 20 stitches right here. And since you left off on the top, you are gonna chain 1, and then you're just gonna go into each single crochet row and place a single crochet. So you are gonna start by going into this first row and then into the next row. And I always like to go into this V, so I'm just gonna go into the middle of this V right here. place your next single crochet, and then you go into this next row right here, and then back again into this V. Okay, in my last single crochet, I'm just gonna place this in here, and then you're gonna chain 1 and turn your work like this, so that now you work down on this side. And for this side, I'm just gonna place a single crochet into each of these V's. It's not really, these are not stitches, but they do kind of look like stitches, so I'm just gonna use them as such. So I'm gonna start off by just going in here. That's my first single crochet, and then I'm gonna go to the next one. And now that I reached the half double crochet part, I'm just going to place my single crochets wherever I see them fit, and just make sure you place them not too close to each other and also not too far apart from each other. Just make sure you always have about the same space in between them, and you can also make your stitches a little bit looser. I'm just going to place my last single crochet in here from this ribbed part. And now I'm just gonna place the single crochets on this half double crochet panel wherever I see fit. And as you can see, I am making my stitches a little bit looser here. Yeah, so just continue making your single crochets all the way down, and once you're at the other end of your scarf, that's when I'm gonna meet you back. Okay, so I made it here to my other side, and I'm gonna place my last single crochet, and now it's time to do the ribbed part on this side. So now you're gonna chain the same amount of chains that you did on the other side when you made your ribbed part. So for me, that's going to be 20 chains. So you're just going to start chaining, and I am going to mark my first chain. And in total, I'm going to do 20, and you're going to chain as many chains as you had on the other side. And once you have your chain, again, you're going to chain 1. This is your turning chain. And then you are gonna work all the way down, single crochets into each chain. So skip this first turning chain and go into the next one. Pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook to create your first single crochet. And now, just like you did on the other side, you are going to place single crochets all the way down, and once you're back at the bottom, that's when I'm going to meet you back. Okay, so I made it to the first stitch that I had marked, which is the last single crochet for this row. And now it's time to connect this back to our panel, and make sure you place it into this very first stitch right here. You can also just count all of these stitches. I had 16 in total, so I'm just going to count 16 stitches, and into the 16th stitch, this is where I'm going to connect my ribbed part. So I'm going to go into this stitch right here and make a slip stitch. And I am going to make one more slip stitch, just like we did on the other side for our ribbed part. And then, once you made your slip stitch, you're going to turn your work and skip these 2 slip stitches And again, you're gonna work single crochets into the back loops only. So go into your stitch and place your single crochet. And from here on, this is the exact same pattern as the other side. So when you come back up to the top, make sure you chain 1 and then turn your work. And just keep placing your rows up and down until you have your ribbed part finished on this side, and that's when I'm gonna meet you back. Okay, so once you made your last row and you have worked into every stitch of this half double crochet row, you are gonna chain 1 and then turn your work. And even though you already are done with your ribbed panel right here, we are still gonna work one more row down and then continue with our lining. So start working your single crochets into the back loop only. I'm gonna place my last stitch in here from this ribbed part, and then I'm gonna continue just like we did on the other side. I'm gonna continue making single crochets into all of these half double crochet rows. So go ahead and do that just like you did on the other side. When you make it back to this ribbed part, you're just gonna place 1 single crochet into each of these stitches. So I'm gonna place 1 in here, and now starting with my ribbed part, I'm just gonna place them in these stitches that are already here, and I'm gonna go into this whole stitch and just place the single crochets all the way up. And when you get back to the top, you're gonna place your last single crochet, and then you are gonna cut your yarn, but make sure you leave a little tail. And now I'm gonna show you a smooth finish, how to end your seam right here. So you can go ahead and pull out all of your yarn and then attach it to your needle. And now you're gonna go into this next stitch with your needle. You're gonna go into both strands, and then you are gonna go back into your last stitch right here, but only into the back loop like this. And now we have created a stitch, or really it's not really a stitch, but it looks like a stitch. And now you can weave in your end, and then I'm gonna meet you back. Okay, so now we are almost finished. As you can see, we have our lining almost all the way around. However, it is only missing on this side at the top and on the side of this ribbed part. So that's what we're gonna fix now. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna reattach our yarn to this stitch right here, and then just add our lining on this side and here on top. So you're gonna grab your yarn and you're gonna insert your hook into this last stitch that you can see from this half double crochet part. And now you're just gonna grab your yarn with your hook and pull it through this stitch. And now secure it with a knot. And now you're gonna go back into the same stitch. You're gonna pull up a loop, chain 1, and you're gonna place a single crochet into this stitch, into the same stitch. So go back into the same stitch, pull up a loop, and make a single crochet. And now I'm gonna place a single crochet into these little V's right here, into each one of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into this first V that I can see. and place my first single crochet, and I'm gonna do this all the way until I'm at the top of this part. And back at the top, I'm gonna place my last single crochet, then I'm gonna chain 1, and now I'm gonna place single crochets into each of these single crochet rows, just like we did on the other side. So I'm gonna start here and just work my way all the way down. And now here at the end, I'm gonna place again my last single crochet of this side. And just like we did on our other end, I'm gonna cut my yarn and leave a little tail. And now you are gonna pull this yarn out and attach it to your needle. And now I'm gonna go into this first stitch on this side, and I'm gonna go into this whole stitch with my needle like this, and I'm gonna go back into my last stitch, but only in the back loop. And now all you have to do is just weave in this end and all of the other ends that you still have, and then you're gonna be all finished with your scarf. I hope you enjoyed crocheting this scarf, and make sure to tag me on your creations, and I'll see you in the next video.